Hello and welcome back to the Chattercade podcast where I discuss and review media. I'm your host, Dragon Thomas Hughes, and today I'm discussing... this is what I said I'd be doing a while ago. I was obviously talking about the fact that I was going to be covering the Man-Eater series, a handful of straight-to-DVD/TV movies that were produced by the Sci-Fi channel from 2007 all the way up till... when was the last one? When was the last one indeed, actually, Tom? I will double check that one. So the last one I believe was The Hollow, I think. Which if I'm correct in that is the last one off the top of my head, then 2015 would have been the last one. But that was after the short revival of the franchise after the last one came out in 2011. Because they were doing these for years and years, and then they stopped. Then they brought it back with 3 more, and then stopped again. But obviously, we're going back to the very beginning, and I said I'll be covering this entire series, and it would taking me basically from now all the way until August next year. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be a long ass series, but fuck it, let's do it. I want to tackle something, a franchise that's quite big, and something that not many people discuss because, well, let's be honest, it's a bunch of low budgeted sci-fi movies. Of course, not many people are going to be discussing from maybe die-hard fucking sci-fi channel movie fans or people just want to talk about bad movies. So here we are, and obviously today I'm talking about the opening entry in the series, which was called Blood Monkey, which was released back in 2007. And if I get you the synopsis up real quick. So the plot summary on IMDb reads, renowned but mad professor leads a small group of American students into the jungles of Africa, to investigate a remote tribe of killer chimpanzees rumored to be the missing link. Well, first off, the very clearly are gorillas they're shown in this movie, not obviously basic chimps. So I don't know why it's called Blood Monkey. They could call it Blood Ape or something like that, because it's very clear when you do get to see said creatures in action, they're very clearly large apes. So, just to point out an error with the synopsis and description of said movie. I mean, to be fair, even... I don't think that's even an ape on the fucking picture. Specifically the apes I use in this movie. If I'm looking at this, obviously, picture on my phone, obviously, for the poster. To me, it kind of looks like... I could be wrong, but it kind of looks like a baboon. Or a mandrill. Actually, I think baboon. I'll go baboon or mandrill. Mandrills have very distinct faces. I'm going to go with baboon. Especially with the jaws. So it's very clear they've slapped in some sort of primate on the picture and just gone, here you go, here's some red eyes, here's a bit of blood on the face. Let's stick our characters in front of them to be like, here's the... this is what you get into. And I don't remember the last time I actually watched this movie before. Obviously, I watched it for this review. It's got to have been quite a few years now. But I do remember watching it when it kind of first came out. Obviously, over here at least, when it first came out in the UK, which... Was it 2007 when it first came out in the UK? Or was it got to be after that, actually? According to this, the TV release in the UK was December 22nd, 2006. Was it labelled as a 2007 movie then? Hold on. I'm going to check some out here because I swear on the internet it's... Yeah, so there's so many different... So it's labelled as a 2007 movie, but it's also labelled as a 2006 and 2008 movie. So premiered in Canada in 2007. So I think that's what they're counting it as 2007 movie. And then it aired on the Sci-Fi channel in 2008. I've got to watch it around that point. I don't know if I watched it when it first came out, but I definitely probably watched it whenever they started putting it on... It wasn't Sci-Fi channel over here. I remember seeing it on. It was like one of the other Sky channels. I just can't remember which one it was. But I do remember watching it around the point it came out, and I've definitely seen it a couple of times since. But this is the first time in a couple of years I've actually sat down and watched it again. And and it was worse than I remember it being. I remember it being like bad, but like tolerable. But on this rewatch, I was sat there going, okay, this movie could have been a lot better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the concept's intriguing. The idea of obviously them going to this jungle to try and track down, as I said, the missing link, being led there by this mad scientist mad professor who basically will do anything to prove their existence and maybe even bring one back out of this remote jungle with him. So I like that idea. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's got a good lead actor in the form of F. Murray Abraham, who, as a lot of people in reviews saying, he's the only saving grace of this movie, and they don't understand why he's even this. But that's the thing with these Man-Eater series movies. A lot of them, especially in the early days, I don't think a lot of the later ones did, off the top of my head, but I know the early entries in the series, they tend to get a well-known star of like the older generation to appear. So now, obviously, for example, the Spider one, you had Lance Henriksen. For the Man-Eater one, which was obviously the Tiger, you had Gary Busey. Here's me trying to remember some others. The Crocodile one, Croc, you obviously had the late Michael Madsen. I forgot his name for a second. So obviously, I know a lot of them had like a big name star. I swear Grizzly Rage might be the only one without that big name star. But I say this is the first one that went with F. Murray Abraham, and I say he did a really good job in the role. I say compared to a lot of the rest of the cast. The rest of the cast were mid to meh. Actually, mid and meh are the same. Mid to there you go. That's a better one. I think the only one I actually thought was pretty decent was fucking Matt Ryan. And that's because I'm going to be biased due to the fact he's Constantine and Edward Kenway. Or was Constantine and Edward Kenway when he was in Assassin's Creed and the DC universe. So I'm going to be a bit biased on that note. But still, obviously, that's another bright point of this. I'm trying to think of the... I mean, when they do a couple of like gore shots, they look okay. But there's not a lot. There's probably like literally just one or two that are just, you're like, okay, that's not too bad, but then the rest of it is either off screen or an aftermath situation. And that's what this thing does. This obviously the movie does a lot, is it takes a while to get going, and a lot of the stuff that happens tends to be slightly off screen or a very brief glimpse on the screen. I feel like when you got movies like this where it's clearly not going to show you your main creature, you need to basically make sure the rest of the movie is great to cover up the fact that you're not going to be showing it a lot. I mean, the big example which I'll always go to with a movie like this would be Jaws, a movie that had issues with its obviously mechanical shark. So it was like, okay, we can't use it a lot. We'll place it in certain parts of the movie, and then in between these really big moments when it appears, we'll do a lot of obviously building up of the story. We'll give the actors a lot of times to shine. And I mean, this movie kind of tries to do that, but it just does it in an unsuccessful way. And to top it off, obviously, they go the route of, I think it's a mixture of a man in a suit for certain shots and digital. Because obviously, you get the ape attack right at the very beginning, which obviously is kind of sets you up again. Okay, this seems interesting. It's like this ape's just literally just fucked up a lot of people, and then these people are going. This other group are going in there, and they're going to encounter them. And then you get little moments here and there where you see, for example, there's a shot towards the end where you see like one in the tree, and I'm pretty certain that's just a guy in like a suit staring at a tree. You've got, for example, I suppose there's a shot as well where this woman's basically trying to lure it out, and she's watching this trap she's set, and it drops behind her and disappears. And I swear again, for a few moments, that is just clearly just the lower half of a guy in like a gorilla suit. But then obviously on top of that, it has its CGI, which it doesn't use a massive amount, because as I said, the ape is is barely even in this movie. And that's like another thing I read, obviously a lot of people complained about, is the fact that the movie is lacking of its obviously antagonist, which I say worked for someone like Jaws because they did a good job of putting it in scenes where obviously spacing out throughout the movie, and then say doing a really good job in between those big attack sequences. They did a good job of making it a watchable movie. As I say, this movie doesn't do that, and then when it finally gets to revealing the actual full size of the monster, obviously of this monster, it's just so lackluster because, well, for starters, it's very clearly CGI and it's not the best CGI. I mean, the final shot of the movie where you get the full sort of upper body of this fucking monster roaring at the camera is just like, that is some dreadful ass digital effects. I don't know how they. Well, actually, to be fair, you can argue a movie of this sort of, especially a straight to DVD/TV movie of this era. You can argue, okay, you're probably going to expecting some dreadful CGI. I mean, even now today, when you obviously get these types of movies, you still tend to get bad CGI, even though technology isn't advanced that obviously far ahead of where it was then. Because of lack of budget, that's the one thing that I think kills this movie. Is the lack of budget. I feel like if they had a bit more budget, a better script, then it actually would be a solid movie. Because to me, it kind of, even when watching it back when it first came out, it always gave me vibes of Congo, which obviously I reviewed a while back, a few months back now. It always gave me those sort of vibes because obviously, they're going to an African jungle, B, there's some killer gorillas. And it's obviously it's then showing these people having to survive these gorillas while also trying to search for something in particular. Obviously, in Congo's case, it was obviously the jewel slash the previous expedition that went missing. In this case, it's, well, these apes. And I say they always gave me that sort of vibes, just on a very much smaller budget. And I feel like, I say, if you give that much a bigger budget, rework this script, and as I say, take that leaf out of Jaws' book, you probably would get a generally solid movie. Because, as I say, it's an interesting idea. And I like the idea of seeing, obviously, this professor essentially do whatever it takes to get this evidence. He doesn't give a shit about these people he's with, but they could literally just all die for all he cares. He just wants the proof of these monsters' existence, and that's obviously interesting, and it allows F. Murray Abraham, to go into that realm of moments where he's generally just like this normal professor, but then these other moments he can be very psychotic and not give a shit about anything but his objective. So I say that is great. It's just it's packaged within a very small budgeted movie that tries to be tense. Like it draws it out, and obviously then when it starts, obviously the moments when the apes are attacking it draws out that tension, and that's fine. But problem is, it doesn't do it well enough. And then the end game of the obviously what they're trying to execute here with this tension just is pretty lackluster. Like it's just not great. I'm trying to think of an example. For example, obviously one of the not the first death, but one of the first deaths of the group, when they're dragged away, and you're like, okay, that's like it's drawn out. This tense moment is here, and then you cut into moments after where everyone's realizing, oh, they're gone, and what the hell happened to them? And obviously, of course, you get a few obviously reasonings behind everything, and then the big reveal of why they're gone, and you're just like, okay, that's fine. Very clear what's going on here. And then obviously when it finally gets to the point of the death sequence, it's obviously a very quick sequence. It's not drawn out. It's just a straight up slash to the face and like some practical effects on the face, and you're just like, don't get me wrong, the face that shot looks pretty cool, the practical effects on the face, but like you could have done something more with that. You could have done a bit more with this ape attack. And then obviously that being the aftermath. It's just that's not even just like one of them. It's like there's a couple of them as well. Like, for example, a scene later on, characters obviously setting a trap leads to two deaths, one after the other, and both are pretty much essentially off screen. Obviously, you see the full body of the one dead, but then it's just obviously the arm of the other one. But I think what doesn't help, that's the second death at least, because I say you got this first one, which is practically just off screen near enough, and it's like, okay, maybe you can top this up with the second one that's very clearly coming now. And they did the shots where whenever you see it from the Apes' perspective, it's always like a red screen, and you're like, okay, that's fine. It's interesting. You're seeing it from their point of view, but there's this shot which I was like, makes no sense. So obviously you're seeing it charge at this guy. Obviously you're seeing it charge at the guy from its POV, and you're just like, okay, that's cool. But then it shows it from the guy's point of view, and he's seeing it charge at him, but it's still the red screen. I'm just like, surely you should have cut back to normal camera footage rather than the red, because it's clearly that's not from the ape's perspective now. And to be fair, in that shot, like the ape didn't look too bad when it's charging. It's just, I don't know why it showed the red from the guy's perspective as well. It should have been just from the ape's perspective. And again, it's just a quick, boom, gone. Just the arm left. Just the arm left and a belt falling on the floor. It's just like, could have probably done better with that. And that kind of just sums up the movie as an overall. Could have done better with a lot of it. Because the groundwork there is there for what could be an entertaining movie. But because of the lack of a lot of things, especially budget, it just doesn't hit home as it could have. And especially being the first one, I feel like, especially when you're making a franchise, I know this is like, each movie is a different story, each entry is a different monster, there's no continuation, there's no characters coming back for the next movie, it's just one and done. I feel like you've still, for a first movie, you still got to try and find a way to want to draw people back in for the rest of them. And for me, if I was obviously just watching this one and they were like, okay, there's these other ones coming out, I'd probably watch it and go, if they're all as bad as this, the same quality as this, then I'm out, because it's not great. It's the equivalent of like the ones that usually have these massive franchises, a superhero franchise. You want that first entry of the franchise to blow people away. Audience critics, you want them all to be like in love with this. Yeah, you always have your minority that are just like, I don't give a shit about this, is awful. But you want majority to enjoy it, to then want to come back to the next entry in the series. Because if you think about it, if Iron Man 1 sucked and did really bad, we wouldn't have the MCU. And obviously the same there with obviously DC relaunching the universe with Superman. Obviously it's done a killing at the box office. It's got some great reviews across the board. If that movie came out to the reviews of, let's say, Man of Steel, because that didn't come out to the best of reviews, but it did enough to allow them to keep going. It was just when they started getting more and more bad reviews down the line, that's when they started going, maybe we should try and change the game here. Obviously, if Superman came out to negative reviews, would they be still going all hands on deck with the rest of this franchise? Because to me, I feel like then they'd be hoping on Supergirl making that big killing for them to go, okay, we can stick with this. We had one dud, we can go with it. But you know, let's say with movies like this, you kind of want the first one to at least be watchable. Watchable, that's the word I should be saying. Watchable enough to make people go, okay, I'll check out the next one. Like, this one was not a waste of time. It was okay enough for me to go, okay, I will check out this next one when it's on TV, or check out this next one when it comes out on DVD. So I feel like that's what you kind of needed, and this, as I say, movie just did not do that. It didn't hit home, and again, it's not a surprise. It's a straight to DVD/TV Sci-Fi Channel original movie. Well, Sci-Fi produced movie. It's not a Sci-Fi original. I'm pretty certain if I look on the internet, it's a sci-fi produced at least. Direct-to-video natural horror film produced by RHI Entertainment. Where is it? There was a... it's the first film in the Man series produced under an agreement with Sci-Fi. So it was just an under an agreement thing with them. It wasn't like, say, some like the Sharknado ones nowadays, where it's like a straight-up Sci-Fi original. Yeah, you've got the Asylum being the production company behind it, but it's a straight-up Sci-Fi original. This, looking at this, it kind of goes on. It kind of comes across as it wasn't. It was just an agreement between them. I don't think it's labeled as a Sci-Fi original. Have a look. Yeah, it wouldn't have been, because if you look at this, if you listen to this, obviously, obviously when it premiered in Canada, obviously it was on it went through obviously on multiple different VOD video on demand channels, I should say. So before it eventually went on the Sci-Fi channel, so technically speaking, wasn't a Sci-Fi original. It's just, I'm guessing more than likely the agreement was, you can, well, obviously we'll probably put a bit of funding into this movie, and eventually we'll have it on our channel as, obviously on one of our nights we'll air it on our channel as a premiere on the Sci-Fi channel. But in reality, it's probably gone through multiple other stuff before that, i.e. it's gone straight to DVD before that, before then it's eventually made its debut on the Sci-Fi channel. Whereas, like, say, Sharknado, it made its debut on the Sci-Fi channel before going to that DVD realm and stuff like that. So I'm guessing it was that kind of opposite way with this. It's more the case of it went elsewhere before kind of becoming that Sci-Fi original, but not a Sci-Fi original, if you get what I'm getting at there. So it's one of those ones where it's, as I said, the groundwork's there for an interesting movie concept. It's just executed pretty poorly, and then it kind of has like a very crap ending, because I say you get to the last, I think it was like the last 20-25 minutes, and that's when it all kind of fully kicks in. Like, actually, let's say the last half hour is when it fully kicks in. Bear in mind, this movie is an hour and 20-ish minutes, so you got pretty much the majority of the movie where you get the opening, where there's obviously the first attack, which I say isn't the greatest, but again, you can argue, okay, Jaws went off screen with its first one. That's fine. You don't mind off screen one as long as you kind of can bring it back with the rest of the movie. And it just drags it out for ages, bringing in these characters, setting them up in this new setting, trying to get you used to them, even if they're not the greatest characters. Then you start slowly whittling them down, like you get rid of one character. Then it kind of drags out a little bit longer before you start getting rid of the rest. But then when you start again, it kind of, it's non-stop then, essentially. Like, you pretty much, they start dropping like flies. And it's like, okay, I feel like you kind of probably could have just drawn it out a bit more and had them essentially go one by one, like these apes. They're smart and then know how to tactically pick off people, which is what they essentially eventually do. They essentially start picking them off one by one, and they start fucking with them and leading them into areas that they want them to go to. Areas where you'll find traps. You'll find areas where they can't get out of. Like, there's only one way in, and that way is now blocked off by said apes. So I feel like if they should have done they should have spaced the kills out basically, and not just gone, let's do it all at once at the end. And as I say, you can get away with that as long as like the kills are decent, and this movie doesn't have those decent kills. That's the problem with it as well. I feel like a lot of people would have been okay with a lot of it if the kills were decent, because that's what you tend to find a lot of times with like these sort of low budget horror films. People will go, oh, it was awful, but the kills were decent. And obviously, people are already saying, obviously, F. Murray Abraham was the standout of this movie. they'd also then be saying, well, when the apes came and killed people, that was also great, and the apes looked great. But this movie literally had the one thing going for it, which was its obviously essentially main star, its main older star. That's all it had really going for it. Everything else was just not there. It was, I say, the groundwork's there. It's just the execution just was very poor. And I say, for a first entry in a series, it's lackluster and could have been a lot better. So if I was to give Blood Monkey a rating, see, I was looking at my IMDb and I'd already given it a rating years ago. I don't know how many years ago when I watched it last. So obviously back then I gave it a 4, and when I watched it back, I was like, yeah, this movie's not a 4. I feel like I'm still being pretty generous by saying Blood Monkey is a 3 out of 10. I feel like that's me still being generous. Because I still like the concept of the story. I say Matt Ryan and F. Murray Abraham were the standouts for me in this movie. And the concept was intriguing. It's, as I say, it's just the execution was done that poorly that it drops it so badly into the, well, it's a one and done kind of movie. You watch it once and then you'll probably never go back to it, or if you do go back to it, it'll be years down the line. So yeah, I feel like that's where I'm at with this movie. Obviously, I know at the moment, at least, I know it's in the UK. It's on Prime Video. You can watch it on there. Again, they use a completely different ape picture to what's on the poster. I'm pretty certain I swear the picture on the obviously Prime Video is more of the, is it Capuchin monkey? One of the smaller ones, basically. So it's very clearly not the ape that's in the movie, and neither is the poster ape. But you know, they're clearly just going, well, it's about a monkey. Oh, even though it's completely about a gorilla, not a specific, not a monkey. I think in like the US, technically, you can still buy the box sets with the Man-Eater series movies on, and usually it's about 3 on in a collection. I think I got one of them, not the collection ones. I got one of the movies on a Region 1 locked DVD. Thankfully, I got a Region 3 DVD player and I can play it. Because the only one I could never get my hands on over here is the only way I could get it. But that's, thankfully, it's not one I'm going to be covering until like fucking next year, I think. But yeah, as I say, it's just, it's there. The groundwork's there for what could have been a great, at the time, modern take on, modern inspired Congo movie, but it just didn't hit home. So yeah, obviously, if you watch Blood Monkey, put your thoughts in the comments below. And obviously, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, Amazon Music, etc., etc. Just check it out on YouTube, where you can see all my other content. Obviously, unless you're already on YouTube right now, then you got all the other content here. And obviously, next week, I believe it's next week. Let me just double check on my calendar. So we're on this one. It would be that one, yeah. So next week, I'm going to be covering Castle Series 3 and 4. No, sorry. Series 3 and 4. Series 2 and 3, sorry. I've already done. Series 4 will be attached to Series 5. Yes, so I'll be covering Castle Series 2 and 3. Continuing on from obviously when I did Castle Series 1 a few weeks back. So, yeah, obviously there's that to check out next week. And I am looking at doing Series 4 and 5 possibly in September. I think my schedule on the podcast allows me to do that one. So we'll see about that. Obviously, the next entry in the Man-Eater series is will be Grizzly Rage, but that'll be at the end of the month. So that'll be pretty much the last episode going out this month. So obviously, do come back for that if you're here for this very low budgeted franchise that I'm covering right now. But other than that, I can't really think of much else to say. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.